My daughter cut me off to side with her cheating mom, then returned to steal my retirement, but one decisive move from me turned her world upside down. I'm 46 years old and recently went through a divorce with my wife of 23 years. My wife, Lydia, 44 female, was my girlfriend from college, who I went on to marry after we graduated. We have a daughter together as well, Erica, who recently turned 21. I was the one who initiated the divorce after I found out that Lydia had been cheating on me with her boss, Alan. I came across some texts on her phone by accident, and when I confronted her about it, she didn't even try to deny it. She confessed that it had been going on for quite some time and that she'd been planning on letting me know because she'd fallen for her boss and couldn't be with me anymore. She moved out after she confessed, and I filed for divorce the next day. Almost 8 months have passed since that day, and a couple of weeks ago, the divorce finally came through. I've managed to keep myself as far as I can from my ex-wife after I found out about her affair and have tried my very best to put my own mental health first during the divorce, which took a huge toll on me. I thought that now that all of that was done with, I could finally relax and let loose, but I was wrong, thanks to my daughter. Back when I first filed for divorce, I told Erica all about the reason behind it when she asked me why her mother wasn't living with me anymore. She was old enough to understand these things, so I was completely transparent with her. Then, she went ahead to talk to Lydia about this and instantly went no contact with me after she found out exactly how rich Alan was. She told me that she loved her mother more, that Alan was financially better off, and that she'd never have to worry about money if she picked their side, so she didn't want anything more to do with me. It was a huge shock to me, and I was heartbroken when she told me this, but I still had my pride intact. I didn't respond to her and just hung up without saying anything. I didn't expect to hear from her after that, but exactly a month later, she turned up at my doorstep and begged me to take her in. She graduated just a couple of weeks before that, but she hadn't even invited me to the ceremony, and neither had she spoken to me for a month, so I was very miffed with her and wasn't inclined to take her in at all. But she just kept apologizing and requesting me to let her stay with me. She wore me down after a while, and I let her in with all her stuff so she could live with me. After moving in with me, she told me that she'd initially tried to get on her mom's and her boss's good side by cutting ties with me so she could try and convince Alan to invest in the bakery business she wanted to start. My daughter had always taken a keen interest in baking right from childhood, and she'd been good at it, so she'd gone to business school to learn how to run a business herself. Her end goal had always been to end up as a baker with her own business, and she'd wanted Alan to fund that because otherwise she'd have to work and earn the money to invest in her business herself. Lydia and I had always told her that it would be better for her to work under someone first and gain some hands-on experience working as a professional baker before she started her own business, but she wanted to jump the gun and start her own thing right away. She knew there'd be a lot of arguments if she brought the business up without first working with someone professional, and we wouldn't just readily hand over the funds, so she'd planned to convince Alan instead because he had a lot of money and wouldn't be too worried about it. She did approach Alan a couple of weeks back to ask him to invest without her mother's knowledge. He told her that he'd think about it, but instead he went and told Lydia about what Erica had asked. My wife and daughter got into a massive argument over this, and as much as I hate to say it, Lydia's stance on this was justified. Erica had gone behind her mother's back to ask her new boyfriend for investment funds, knowing that Lydia wouldn't be okay with it. That was really sneaky and disrespectful to Lydia, especially when she just started dating this man openly, so her anger made sense. They tried to work things out but couldn't, and so Erica had cut her mother off and come to me for help instead. I told her the same thing again, that for me, it was a requirement that she first work under a professional and then start her own business. She had a business degree and a knack for baking, but that didn't necessarily mean that she'd be excellent at it in a professional capacity without any experience. She needed to practice, so I told her very frankly that I wouldn't be giving her any money unless she agreed to my terms. Unhappily, she did agree to it, and I even had a lawyer draw up an agreement to make sure that she stuck to it. She wasn't very pleasant during that process, but she did agree to it because she knew that this was the only way I'd fund her business in the long run. Her efforts to get Alan to do it had turned out to be a bust, so I was her last resort unless she went out and asked other investors for funds, which would be a lot harder. After she signed the agreement, I did allocate some funds for her while she tried to look for jobs. She'd ask me for money almost every day for her commute and other bills that she needed to pay, like Netflix and other stuff, so I handed over my spare debit card to her. I had some savings set aside in that account, around $225,000, which I'd actually been saving for the future because I wanted to retire early. I had severe carpal tunnel syndrome, so it was difficult for me to continue working this desk job in the coming years, and I'd been putting some money aside every month so I could retire early. Now that Erica seemed to need money, I handed the card to her and asked her to use it responsibly and return it to me once she was able to pay off all her own bills after she found a job. I'll admit I forgot about that a couple of weeks later because I was too caught up at work. Erica kept updating me on her life every other week at dinner and would tell me about her new job working at a professional bakery, how much she was earning, and how life was for her. I believed her because I didn't think she had any reason to lie about any of that. She'd go out every day and come back late in the evening for months, so I was sure she was telling me the truth. Last week, I learned that actually none of that was true, and she'd been lying to me all along. I randomly remembered that I'd given my daughter my card and decided to check the money I had in that account. I knew that Erica's salary was going into her own account, and now she could afford to pay her own bills and stuff. I expected there to be at least half of the amount that was in there originally. To my surprise, there was just $3,000 left in there, and the rest was just gone. I was in shock and decided to check out the transaction history, which is something I should have done a long time ago, and then I would have realized that Erica had disregarded everything I had asked of her and started her own business anyway. She'd rented a store in the most happening part of the city, which meant higher rent, and had used my money to fund her business, which was a clear breach of the agreement that she'd signed. She'd been running the store for the past couple of months, and it had also been using my card for all other expenses too. She didn't have to pay rent because she lived with me, but she did go out with her friends, party, and pay for it all with my card for the last few months. I was horrified to find all of this out in one sitting, just because I'd randomly decided to check what she'd been up to with my card, and I immediately called her up and told her that she needed to get back home right away. She came back home within an hour, and when I demanded an explanation, she told me that she just couldn't wait to have her own business. She knew she'd promised me something, but she didn't want to wait around and work under others when she knew she was capable of making the business work for herself. I asked her where exactly she'd blown all my money, and while she was speaking quite confidently before that, as soon as I asked her, she started getting flustered. Apparently, her business hadn't been doing so well, no surprise there, and she'd been struggling to pay rent for her store, buy her ingredients and other things that she needed, pay her bills for the store and stuff, so she'd been using her own money plus my money, and that's where she'd spent it all. I was furious and told her that she needed to shut her business down within this week and get me my money back, but she argued with me and told me that she wasn't going to do it because she'd worked hard for it, and she just needed some time to get used to the pressure of running a small business all on her own. She said that I needed to support her, but I was not interested in getting a lesson on parenting from her at the time, so I continued to fight with her. After some time, she just burst into tears and told me that she'd be better off with her mother because at least she was more forgiving and had asked her to come back several times even after the incident with Alan. She threatened to leave, and I asked her to be my guest, so she packed her stuff up and left that day. Just a week after my divorce was finalized, I was already very stressed out and had spent a lot of money on my lawyer, and then to add to this, Erica had spent a significant amount of the funds I'd been keeping aside for my own future so I could retire early. I was really annoyed and decided to sue her because she'd breached the agreement that we'd had, and she'd only get to use the fund if she worked under a professional first. So, I decided to go up against her and sue Erica to get my money back. A few days after she left, and 2 days back after she was served, I received a very angry phone call from Lydia. I hadn't expected us to be back in touch so soon after the divorce, but yet here we are. She was angry that I was suing Erica and brought up the same bullcrap that most guilty people say, that I should be ashamed of myself because I'm going against my own daughter. I told her to stay out of this and hung up, but she's been texting me consistently to remind me that I'm being a terrible dad right now. I know that what I'm doing is acceptable legally, but I think Lydia's texts have been getting to me because now I actually do think I might be taking things too far. I'm usually not a very confrontational person, but I really had been looking forward to retiring early, and now I'll have to continue working for God knows how many more years, all because Erica screwed up. I don't know if I'm the bad guy here or if it's just Erica and Lydia trying to make me feel like one so I take back the lawsuit. Am I the bad guy for suing my own daughter after she used my retirement funds to start her bakery when I'd asked her not to? It means a lot to me, so thanks for that. Coming to what's going on with me and my family, things have been bad. I blocked Lydia, but I haven't blocked Erica, so now she's the one who's sending me texts every day to guilt trip me and make me feel bad for just standing up for myself. I'm just kicking myself for not checking my balance earlier. Maybe I would have discovered Erica's lies a long time back, but I was so caught up with my job, I didn't even stop to think about the possibility of her being dishonest with me. I feel like I failed as a father because Erica has turned out to be a liar and a greedy brat. I don't know, it just sucks. The way she's been trying to gaslight me and emotionally manipulate me is not helping my mental state either. I was just getting over the divorce, but now I have to deal with this too. It's exhausting. I've told her that she can either respond to me legally or she can leave me alone altogether, but she's not supposed to do this to me. It's just not right. It hasn't helped though, and she just keeps finding ways to make me feel like crap about wanting to look out for my own interests. Just yesterday, She sent me a message saying that she'd ended the lease on the store she'd rented and would soon move out. She asked me if I was happy about it, which is just so manipulative because she's making me feel like this is my fault somehow, and I know it isn't. Her mother is another troublesome element who keeps making cryptic posts about me, and it always finds its way to me either through friends who want to make fun of her or through nosy relatives who want to gossip about this. Either way, it's just annoying beyond a certain point. So, almost a week has passed, and Erica has responded to the lawsuit. I demanded that she pay back the entire amount that she'd taken, but her lawyer wants to negotiate and bring the amount down to $110,000. I don't know why she thought that it was a fair deal because clearly even the $10,000 that she's willing to pay now is all thanks to Alan, so why not just go ahead and pay off the entire amount? It doesn't make sense to me, but it's fine, we'll just duke it out in the negotiations. I don't want to take this to court, but if we're not able to come to a common conclusion, then that's what's going to happen anyway. So, I'll try my best along with my lawyer to reach a common ground with her, but it seems unlikely that she'll be willing to budge given her attitude towards me in the past couple of days. She's taken a leaf out of her mother's book and has blocked me so she can now post on social media about what a terrible dad I am. I've told all my friends and family that I don't want to hear or see their posts about me because it's just irrelevant, but they still keep sending me stuff that Erica posts about me, mostly pictures with my face scribbled out and just her mother with captions like my only family, emphasis on only, or quotes that talk about absent fathers and stuff, which is all a load of complete baloney. But she wants the sympathy and attention right now, so what better way than making me look like the bad guy? I don't think it's fair to paint me in this light, but I realize that most of the things that Lydia and Erica do aren't very fair anyway, so I'd better just get used to it by now. My attorney has told me that we don't need to worry about the negotiations and the settlement because he thinks he'll be able to convince Erica, but that's not even my biggest concern. I'm just worried that I might fall emotionally weak and end up giving in to her terms and conditions. During the divorce, it was still easier because Lydia had cheated on me and had screwed me over badly, so I could bring myself to hate her without batting an eye, but here it was different. This was my little girl that we're talking about here, and it wouldn't be as easy as it had been with Lydia. Erica was my daughter, and I don't think any father in my position would have found it easy to come after their own kin to protect their own interests. I feel selfish, but even though she's my daughter, Erica has been greedy and untrustworthy, so deep down I know this is the right thing to do. I have to do this, and I must do this. All I want is the mental strength to put myself through this once more, just one last time. Hey, guys, so there are just 2 days to go before I meet Erica and her lawyer for the commencement of the negotiation process, and today, literally out of nowhere, Lydia and Alan paid me a visit. It's almost midnight right now, and they visited me around 5:15, which is the time I get home from work usually. Lydia and Alan were actually waiting for me when I came back home, and I was quite surprised to see them. But I didn't let it show on my face and pretended to be composed. I didn't want to invite them in, but Alan said that they really had something private to discuss with me, and so I had to bring them in. It wasn't the most normal sight for me to have my ex-wife and her new guy sitting in my living room, but that's how it was. I waited for them to get to the point, but Alan kept trying to make small talk with me. He actually seemed like a decent guy, barring of course the whole having an affair with someone's wife thing. Eventually, I got tired of talking about irrelevant things and told them to just get to the point. So they did. They told me that it was Alan who was taking the fall for Erica's lapse in judgment, and so he was paying me the money, which is something I already knew, but what I didn't know was that Alan had kids of his own too who he had to look out for. His son was about to start college, and his older daughter was going to get married next year, so he had other financial concerns too and couldn't just pay off $225,000 like that. He wanted to appeal to me personally so that I'd just settle for $10,000 right now, and they could pay the rest of the amount over time instead of giving it all to me up front. I mulled over it for a while, and it seemed fair enough to me, so I agreed to it. It was just a verbal agreement, nothing too serious, so I was all right with the proposition. I also just wanted them to go away so I could unwind after work. Lydia seemed satisfied, so she decided to leave, but Alan asked if he could speak to me in person, which took both me and Lydia by surprise. I agreed, mostly out of curiosity, and after Lydia had left, the guy sat back down and apologized to me for whatever had happened. He seemed sincere while he was sharing his side of things and revealed that while he and Lydia were together, she'd not been entirely truthful with him and had convinced him that she was trapped in an unhappy marriage. This was why he'd felt a little less guilty about the affair. She'd been the one to initiate things, and he'd been skeptical in the beginning, but he fell for her, and he fell hard, which makes sense because despite everything, Lydia is beautiful, smart, and funny, so it's not surprising that he fell for her. So had I, a really long time ago. He never imagined I'd just brush it all aside like it was nothing, but he explained that he simply had to unload everything weighing on him, to at least extend that olive branch of an apology, no matter how late it came. I reassured him it was all water under the bridge, emphasizing that the real betrayal lay with Lydia. She was the one bound to me by vows and promises, not him. With that weight lifted, he slipped out the door, leaving me alone with the echoes of his words. And ever since, my mind has been a whirlwind, replaying every twist and turn. It's profoundly unsettling, isn't it? How Alan, this outsider who barely knows me from Adam, mustered more genuine empathy and understanding than the very women who were supposed to stand by my side through thick and thin, my wife and my own flesh and blood. The sting of that realization cuts deep, a quiet ache that lingers like a bruise you can't quite ignore. Yet, in the grand scheme, it's just one more chapter in a story that veered so far off course. Heartbreaking as it is to admit, these fractures don't define me forever. Wounds like this heal with time, and I'll emerge stronger, wiser, ready to turn the page without looking back. The meeting with my daughter today unfolded in a way that felt deceptively straightforward, almost clinical, like we were sealing a business deal rather than navigating the remnants of a shattered family bond. We agreed to hold steady with the terms I'd hashed out alongside Alan, a lump sum of $10,000 handed over immediately, followed by manageable payments stretched across the coming months, easing the financial strain without overwhelming either side. But oh, the emotional toll, seeing her there, face to face, hit me like a freight train I hadn't braced for. For her, it seemed like just another errand, her demeanor as distant and impersonal as if I were some unfamiliar accountant she'd hired for the day. She treated me like a ghost from a forgotten past, her eyes barely meeting mine, her words clipped and devoid of warmth. I can't hold it against her, not entirely. After all, here I was, the father who dragged her into court, even if every fiber of that decision stemmed from the chaos she'd ignited with her own choices. The irony twisted in my gut, me, the villain in her narrative, when the truth was she'd lit the match that set it all ablaze. As the formalities wrapped up, I caught sight of Lydia pulling up in the parking lot, her car idling like a sentinel. She'd come to whisk Erica away, of course, and the two of them paused just long enough to pierce me with glares that could curdle milk, sharp, venomous stares loaded with unspoken accusations and raw contempt. It was as if their eyes were weapons, firing off years of pent-up resentment in a single, searing glance. For a split second, fury bubbled up inside me, hot and insistent. I pictured myself striding over, planting my feet firmly, and unleashing a torrent of truths they'd long evaded, the lies, the manipulations, the way they'd dismantled our life piece by piece. I could almost hear the words forming. How dare you act like the injured parties when you built this house of cards? But then, clarity washed over the rage like cool rain on embers. What would it achieve? A shouting match in a parking lot, more fuel for their victimhood? No, it wasn't worth the breath, the energy, or the last shreds of my dignity. So I let them peel away, tires humming against the asphalt, carrying their shared disdain into the distance. In that moment of restraint, I felt a strange liberation, like shedding a skin that no longer fit. Returning home afterward, I harbored this fragile hope that the chapter was truly closed, that the air would finally clear and I could exhale without the shadow of litigation hanging over me. But reality, as it so often does, had other plans. Erica, it turned out, was far from ready to let bygones be bygones. She was still nursing that grudge like a flame she refused to let die, even though she'd been the architect of the entire mess, the one who'd drawn first blood with her reckless schemes. Out of nowhere, she unblocked my number and fired off a message that landed like a gut punch, a barrage of relief laced with poison, declaring how utterly thrilled she was that the ordeal was behind us, that she'd never again have to endure my presence because, in her eyes, I'd been nothing short of a monstrous failure. A terrible dad, she called me, a husband who'd squandered every chance at redemption. I could practically picture Lydia's smug satisfaction at those barbs, her influence woven into every cutting line, even as I'd poured my soul into being the provider, the rock, the man who tried against all odds to hold our world together. She didn't stop there. Oh no. The vitriol spilled over into a full-throated tirade about how I'd torpedoed her grand visions of entrepreneurial glory once before, crushing her dreams under the weight of my so-called disapproval. But now, she crowed, with Alan stepping into the spotlight of her life, those worries were ancient history. A better man, a richer one, she dubbed him, her new pillar, her savior from mediocrity. It was laughable, really, in its delusion. Alan and Lydia aren't even hitched yet, their relationship still simmering in that tentative premarital haze, full of untested promises and unproven loyalties. And Erica? She's no wide-eyed kid anymore, she's a grown woman, charting her own stormy seas, with no ironclad assurance that Alan will forever play the white knight, swooping in to cushion her falls as he did this time around. That intervention of his? It reeked of showmanship, a calculated bid to dazzle Lydia with his chivalry, not some heartfelt adoption of Erica as his surrogate daughter. He was playing the long game for Lydia's affections, plain and simple, not rewriting family trees out of the goodness of his heart. The whole rant pulsed with hate, a toxic stream of consciousness dump that could have dragged me under if I'd let it. Lines like that have a way of burrowing in, whispering doubts about every late-night worry I'd ever had as a father, every compromise I'd made as a husband. But I refused to drown in it. Instead, I drew a deep breath, felt the initial sting fade into a dull throb, and hit block without a second thought. Why feed the fire? Her words say more about her bitterness than my worth, a mirror held up to the fractures she's too stubborn to mend. And in the quiet that followed, a resolve settled over me like a well-worn coat, comforting, familiar, empowering. From here on out, it's my canvas, my rules. I'll dive headfirst into the rhythm of work that lights a spark in me, chase horizons on spontaneous travels that feed my wandering soul, and craft a life brimming with the joys I've deferred for far too long. No more orbiting their drama, no more second-guessing my path. This is my reclamation, unapologetic and unbound, and damn if it doesn't feel like the fresh start I've been craving all along.